Hello there, and welcome to the Florida Man 40K Podcast, Episode 2. I am Jimmy Prescott. Here I got with me Dan, the man with the beardsmith, and John, everybody loves this guy, Lennon. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. Just happy to be here and excited for another podcast.
Yeah, just hanging out, ready to record, have some fun.
Yeah. Did you guys get a chance to play any games over the past week since we last recorded?
I think just one. I don't know if Daniel's going to call it a game, but I did put my Custodians on the same table as his Necrons, and dice were rolled.
Yeah, I think we can call it a game because I did get this turn 1. That was a lot of fun. And Lennon also had a turn 1. That was fun for me. And then turns 2 through 4. No, I think... Yeah, we called it on 4. Turns 2 and 3 were not fun for me. And then turn 4, we agreed I was about to be tabled.
Yeah, but I think that's about accurate.
But that first turn, though...
It was glorious while you still had your models.
I had so much fun for about, an hour.
While you still had your models?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up the Vexillus and some guardsmen and...
one tank.
One tank. And almost killed a second tank. And then I didn't even...
Well, you didn't kill another tank.
Yeah, I didn't kill...
that I cared about.
Yeah, I didn't kill anything else the rest of the game.
How did you get to the Vexillus?
It's the Necron Immortal Wound stratagem. He just rolled high enough to hit a character.
Yeah, I rolled the 5 up.
On the 3 Doom Scythe
Yeah,
explosion?
the 3 Doom Scythe. Yeah, because he went first, so he had all his planes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I just flew up.
That's a good first kill.
Yeah,
Jeez.
It was great. And I was like, oh, I might have a chance. And then I killed a Cladius, and I was like, oh, I really might have a chance.
Get those cogs moving on removing that -1 to hit. That's pretty great.
And then I didn't have a chance anymore.
Yeah, Immortal Wound Snipe. It's kind of annoying, but we pushed through.
Yeah.
I like... Whenever I've played it so far, the Vexillus usually manages to stay pretty safe, only because with my weapon loadout on him, he has absolutely no combat potential whatsoever. So you can usually just keep him in the back for that -1. Trajan, on the other hand, he can go kill some people. So,
but he also gets killed.
He likes to get out there. Yeah, well, yeah, true. 7 wounds is a lot for an infantry guy with a 3-up save.
That's true.
That's pretty nice.
All right. So what do we think of today? First things first, I think last episode we promised we were going to talk about using combat in general for ways other than killing your opponent, kind of using it as movement shenanigans and to help with the mission, right?
Absolutely. That's something that, as a Chaos player, I use quite a bit, and with the Contorted Epitome, I use even more. So I find that super valuable information, so maybe some of y'all will as well.
Yeah.
That was cool.
All right.
It was very synchronized. I like it.
That was cool. All right, so what we mean by that, using close combat for more than just killing things. Obviously, when you charge, you move the 2d6 you rolled, assuming it was a successful charge. Then you consolidate and pile in 3 inches each. You can heroically intervene to get some extra movement. Some characters can consolidate and pile in 6 inches instead of 3 inches. What else am I missing? Or is that...
Those are the main things. I think we can just go over some of the tricks of, we'll kind of lump the charge phase and the fight phase together here and call it just combat. But some of the tricks of combat that a lot of people don't take advantage of.
Yeah. So the first one that I use all the time is declaring a charge target because it's an easy charge to make. Then rolling the dice just to see how many you get. Because as long as you maintain coherency and end with at least one model within an inch of the enemy model you declared, or enemy unit you declared rather, the others can move wherever. So if you roll an 8-inch charge, you move 2 inches to make base to base with your charge target, and then you move the back of the unit 8 inches the opposite direction to go grab an objective, and then you just spread out and create a huge line of melee dudes on the board. It's pretty good.
Yeah, definitely very useful. A lot of people kind of naturally associate with piling in and consolidating where you have to go closer. Charging, you definitely don't have to do that. So sometimes you can just get that first model in and then spread out, either reach an objective, create screens, get in the way, or to get near another target that maybe you want to pile in and consolidate into later. For example, if you didn't want to charge a Hellhound for some reason, or the Cataphrond Grab Destroyers, you charge the Guardsman squad and you move your 2d6 inches directly towards that unit, and then pile and consolidate, you can tag them later.
Yeah, so that's actually a good example was the Cataphrond Destroyers. When I fought Gabe, I had a Lord Discordant fly across the table, and I could charge 12 Plasma Destroyers, or I could just charge a character then consolidate, pile in, and tag the destroyers. I killed the character and used that to push in, but same thing. So without eating the Overwatch of 12 destroyers, I was able to tag them and remove an entire shooting phase from the game. That's kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of this is stuff that people are aware of, but maybe don't take advantage of. For example, I think like Tau players, your standard Tau player probably doesn't try to take advantage of the combat phase, but because they just want to be out of combat. But like, there's no reason that a Riptide couldn't charge a Rhino. Like it's not going to take any damage really. Maybe it takes 1 wound if your opponent's lucky. That's not a big deal. Sure, the Riptide's not doing any damage, but you can just get a little bit of extra movement out of it. Make that Rhino fall back, make it not advance. I've seen a lot of people do that stuff to me as like a Tyranid player, or like even my Harlequins, where you can tag something just so that it has to fall back. And some armies can fall back and function fully, but they can't advance. I don't think anyone can fall back and advance unless you're with an aircraft. I had people do that to like my Harlequin bikes that have to advance to get a 3-up invuln. Like, yeah, I can fall back and shoot, I can fall back and charge, that's great, but I couldn't get that 3-up invuln, and then the next turn, that unit was suddenly a lot more vulnerable, and that actually kind of sucked.
Yeah. Coming back to the Riptide, that's a great example because you have the Nova boost that lets you move the 2d6 inches in the combat phase. Mm-hmm. It does not say, I don't believe it says that you can't also charge. It's in the charge phase, you roll 2 dice and move that much.
Yeah, I don't think that it technically limits you. That might be a question to ask the local TOs because I could kind of see that going either way.
Absolutely.
It's definitely one of those GW wrote things poorly situations.
But they did FAQ to where you can't just end within an inch when you do that movement. Mm-hmm. So, but it's the same premise essentially. Is I want the free 2d6 inch movement, maybe 4d6 if the rules allow it. We'd have to look into that. But either way, you get the 2d6 inch free movement. Tagging things without fly is a big deal. Even like Lennon said, if you don't deal a single wound of damage, if you've prevented that enemy model from shooting or prevented it from advancing to get to an objective, then you're doing your job. And if they stay in combat with you, well, Riptides have fly, so they don't care. They'll fall back and shoot the next turn anyway, so it's kind of the only threat is eating the Overwatch.
Yeah, and in some scenarios, that's not anything at all, like Plague Bears. You could tag a Plague Bear with a unit of Guardsmen just so that unit's not... I mean, yeah, you might get wrapped, but if you're a melee army, that may not matter. Just that they're not advancing and getting extra screening distance.
Yeah, and that's actually a very good point against Plague Bears specifically. Normally, people try to stay back and gun them down. If you sprint forward into Plague Bears and you can lock them in combat and tri-point them, they're not going to kill the unit that tri-pointed them. Mm-hmm. And if they do, not quickly. Yeah. So you can just kind of hold that, like they want to get across the board and hold you there so they cover most of the table. If you lock them in, then instead of getting their movement, their charge, advances, everything, all they get is consolidate, pile in, which has to go to the closest enemy unit, or model rather. So you can manipulate where the Plague Bearers go at that point and completely shut them down.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, those Guardsmen are absolutely not doing anything meaningful in combat, but you can use that example on any unit, like Space Marine Scouts. You could charge 5 Space Marine Scouts into the corner of a Plague Bear unit if you went first, and you probably wouldn't die. And yeah, you'd get smited out very soon, but that's after the Plague Bears should have moved. So now they fell back from combat, or maybe not if you tri-pointed them. They're no longer getting to advance, and that's just an extra d6 plus 1 with the icon that they're not moving towards you. That'll just stop them from getting to you later, and that really helps you control the board, get those objectives early on.
Exactly. And if I have to smite you off my Plague Bears, then I don't even get the consolidation or pile in move that I normally would have gotten. So I literally didn't move, except for the turn you charged me, and that's it. So, and again, I have to go closer to the closest enemy model. If you charge into the right spot, all I'm doing is moving right into those scouts that you charged.
It just isn't doing anything at all.
Yeah. Ooh. What are your thoughts, Jimmy? The Guardsmen and added the Loyal 32 to your list.
Have you used like Claydus at all? I mean, because that's another unit, kind of like Riptide, that can fall back and still shoot at full effect. It doesn't really care at all. Have you ever used a Claydus to do anything funky?
Yeah, well, I usually use the Claydus as a barrier around the rest of my own army in the first turn or two, especially against stuff like Genestealer Cult, because if something is deep striking in or something needs to charge your front line, if that is the front line, it's a -2 to charge, and then they could just dip right out if they're tagged by something. Plus, you can have your Trajan or your Vexillus nearby, and they can Tanglefoot Grenade if your opponent isn't thinking about it, and have them within 12 inches. so you can kind of prevent that charge altogether. But specifically what I was thinking about when you guys mentioned that was I fought Dan Monsalve's Eldar list, and he has the 2 wave servants, which get an additional
-1 to hit if they advance.
So I didn't really think about that being a way to shut them down. If you're within a certain distance and you wrapped them up and they can't move out of that distance, you could basically just start chasing them down. So like charging it with a Caladia's grab tank or something like that could make it really basically just destroy it. And the next turn it's going to have no minus to hit.
Exactly.
And it's a lot easier to boots the guy now.
Exactly. They fall back. They can only move 12 inches. They can't advance. You get within the 12 inches because they literally can't get out of it. And so no Alteok, no advance, and and then you kill the tank actually pretty efficiently.
If the person is playing it well, though, that guy's going to be really far behind a screen of jets. But in the game that I was playing him, at least one of those was right up in my front line, and I ended up wrapping it with some guards and killed that eventually, but I didn't think about that being an effect of wrapping it, so that's pretty cool.
Was it? I think some other examples like reasons you could tag someone besides killing them. Guardsmen using move. You have to advance to use move. You cannot move without advancing, and you cannot advance in a turn that you've fallen back. Not in a phase in like the player turn. So if you were to just consolidate it with a guardsman, maybe you can't get your tri-point off because you were charging something else. But you just tag them. They can fall back like normal, but that's 6 inches of movement. They can't shoot. They can't move. So now they're, instead of going 12 plus 2d6 inches, they're only going 6 inches. If you're playing against like a Brandon Grant style army where they have a lot of guardsmen and they kind of rely on that to get their points, that's a really good way to stop them from screening you out. I've done that before as a Genestealer Cult army where I know that I want to bring stuff in turn 3. I use my turn 2, kill what I can, but I make sure to tag a lot of units. Yes, they fight back, they're guardsmen, I don't care. And then they can't go move that 19 inches out to screen me out farther. Then I get a good turn 3 drop.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good use for reserve manipulation, which is one of those that we come back to a lot. Understanding when and how to use your reserves and when and how to screen out your enemy reserves is a huge part of this game. So using close combat to prevent your enemy from screening out your reserves is massive.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess rather than just giving examples, I guess the specific guidelines of when you should get into combat is you should always be looking to set up charges on things that won't damage you back. You never want to give your opponent free damage. So, you may be charging your Riptide into a Rhino. Don't charge your Riptide into a Smash Captain. You always look at what can I gain without giving my opponent anything back. So something that I do is if I've got shooting, I might kill 8 guardsmen out of a 10-man squad. I may not finish them off just so I have something to charge later. Whereas, I could have killed those last 2 guys, but I'll leave 2 guardsmen alive. Maybe they fail morale, maybe they don't. But then that gives me more movement for the rest of my army. So always look for things to set up charges as a way of getting board control. And I usually use that to set up screens, reach for objectives, and then try to deny my opponent some of their abilities. So deny them shooting by tagging a Leman Russ or Destroyers or something that can't fall back and shoot. Find something that wants to advance, get into it to prevent them from doing that. I think those would be the basic examples of charging and setting that up, right?
Yeah. And another thing to keep in mind too, like Lennon was saying, don't make bad trades. If you're charging into a unit and they have a Smash Captain that can heroically intervene, if you go to the closest model, you measure the distance to the closest model. But if you roll above that, if you're 5 inches away, you roll an 8, you don't have to go 5 inches to the closest model. Go 8 inches away from the Smash Captain, still get into combat, shift your whole line that way, and now the Smash Captain isn't heroically intervening into you. So always look for the trade your opponent wants to make and try to play away from that trade to benefit you, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I would say that's a big part is, again, coming back to what Lennon was saying, is making just intelligent trades. If you're using it to gain movement, what are you giving up for that movement? And if you're giving up half the unit, it's not really worth it. But if you lose 1 or 2 models, but you're able to send an OBSEC unit to contest or take an objective, you're able to get that recon point that you didn't quite have the movement to get normally, something like that, then you just got to make sure, and everything in Warhammer is trying to make trades. Trade your assets to get more of their assets taken out, something like that.
Or to get points that they're not getting.
Exactly.
Yeah. One other thing, and I know we covered it last week, but creative ways to use your pile-in and consolidation, such as tagging flyers that you couldn't have otherwise charged earlier. So you can force something like a vulture that may hover so it doesn't have a -1 for moving with its heavy weapons to move in the next turn to be able to shoot. Because it, you can't charge it, but you can charge something nearby and then consolidate or pile in within an inch, and then they're considered tied in combat, even though you can't actually make an attack against them. And also, we talked last week, we said that we were going to talk about Tyranids this week. I don't think that we're fully prepared to do that, but just want to throw this in here. Hormagaunts pile in and consolidate 6 inches. It's just a little fact for you.
Yeah.
There you go.
And actually,
That's pretty great. Jeez.
that Hormagaunt thing, I was my next thought that I had was, like at Super Secret, we'll talk about our lists later on, but I'm bringing 15 Bloodletters, and I had originally taken them out of the list, but I was thinking about it. I get decent attacks, good AP, whatever. It can kill guardsmen, kill little engineer squad, stuff like that. But they're glass jawed. So like you drop in, you charge, you kill the unit you want them to kill if you make the charge, and it's not a super durable unit. But what you need to do to keep them alive is then consolidate, pile in, set up to where you can try to tri-point another unit, or you can try to get into ruins, try to get out of line of sight. Use your initial charge, if you are using it for combat, specifically to kill an enemy unit. Don't just go smash into that unit and say, okay, I did my job, I'm done. Definitely try to figure out how to use... You get 6 inches for free. Use it to get out of line of sight. Use it to be defensive. Like, you can be offensive and still play defense at the same time. So try to look for that, and your glass-jawed units might just live a little bit longer.
Yeah, definitely. That's very important with, fragile units like Bloodletters, fragile armies like Genestealer, Orcs, Xangors. I think all of those have that same playstyle where you want to look for not only things to charge, but units to wrap near those units that you can get into. And maybe you specifically don't declare a charge on that unit, just so you can pile in without the risk of swinging on them and potentially killing someone you want to wrap. So, even if they can't fire Overwatch, you may not want to declare a charge on some units.
Yep, absolutely. And if it's unavoidable because of a successful charge will bring you within an inch, always remember every model has a basic close combat weapon that is strength user, AP dash, damage 1.
Yep, exactly.
So
I've seen people do that with a Lord Discordant who could put out, 100 attacks with, all strength high AP damage. All of those attacks are optional, like its tails and its limbs and all that.
Yep.
It only has 4 attacks base, and it doesn't have to use its chain blade. It could use its basic melee weapon. So you can go from 12 tank killing attacks to 4, just love taps from Space Marine.
Strength
and
6.
that's a great way to not kill a guardsman squad. Strength 4 base.
Yeah, it is strength 4 base because all of the weapons are bonus strength.
Yeah, all the bonus. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah, you literally are poking him with the hilt of the chain glaive he's holding.
Yeah. It's a love tap right there. I guess next thing would be Heroic Intervention. Heroic Intervention, a lot of people don't use it to its full potential. Pretty common one, I think most people have figured it out, is that you can heroically intervene even if you don't have, even if the unit within 3 inches of you didn't charge. So if your opponent has a flyer near you, near your character may not be able to swing on them if it's something like a Lord Discordant who can't fly. You can still heroically intervene into that unit, and then you can pile in and consolidate off of that activation.
Yep.
So I think at ATC, one of the players on my team, Mark Perry, heroically intervened into a Hemlock, because he was still alive with 1 wound left. Then he was, his 0.9 inches away. When it was his time to select, he then piled in with that Lord Discordant and got in range of a Warlock. And then swung on the Warlock, because he didn't charge, he could declare anything as a target, and murdered the Warlock, and then was still in combat with the Hemlock, but in his turn he was free to leave as normal because of aircraft.
Yep. And that reminded me of another point. But, yeah, essentially, I'll come back because there's a couple things. So one, to rewind just a little bit, where he used the base of the Hemlock to wrap all the way around to get to that Warlock. If you have 2 models that you're equidistant, it says you have to move closer to the closest. If you're equidistant, you choose, just the way that the rules are set up. So you can charge in, get to one model, then use your first consolidation to wrap around, become equidistant with a second model, and then use your pile in to actually leave the first model you hit, because now you're equidistant to the second one, and wrap around that. So you can continue to kind of work around your enemy model by model when you go that route.
And I think the flip side of that is when you're charging against a character, I would always base them if you can, because they can heroically intervene even if you're within an inch of them, even if you're in a combat, in an ongoing combat, whatever the case may be. Just because, they could then move a little bit after you charge to make your combat a little harder. I had a game against Nick Nanavati at Charity Hammer last year, I guess in January, where he charged Orc Boys into the Swarm Lord, didn't base me, and I used my heroic intervention to go whip around a boy, and that took his Power Claw out of combat. And I survived that round, and I should have been, being hit by a Power Claw and tri-pointed if he didn't kill me. Instead, I was on the side of the unit, he couldn't quite tri-point me, and he wasn't able to get me with a Power Claw either, and I survived, fell back from combat, and didn't die to Orc Boys immediately. I died later to Orc Boys, but it bought me an extra turn.
Exactly. And the inverse of that, let's say Lennon charged his Swarm Lord into, pick a character, Company Commander, and had also declared 10 Guardsmen behind him, but only rolled high enough to get to the Company Commander. That Company Commander can heroically intervene to go base to base with the Swarm Lord to prevent it from consolidating into the Guardsmen. Now, yes, that Swarm Lord is going to nuke a Company Commander, but that's all he's going to do. And then he if he kills it, then he can still pile in, but he's not attacking those Guardsmen. And that's...
Yeah, consolidate.
Yeah. Sorry, I get them backwards all the time.
I understand.
But anyways, so you use your heroic intervention to sacrifice the one model to save 10 others in that situation. Mm-hmm. So that's something to always think about, is what can I do with this free movement? Another example, and it's happened, I'll say I've done it once or twice. It's not very common. If you're close to an objective, they charge you because they need to get to that objective, and they make the mistake of not basing you, then you can heroically intervene onto the objective and contest it anyway. So, that's a thing you can do. It's just always keep plays like that in your back pocket, because you never know when you can deny a point and you win 30-29 instead of tying 30-30.
Yeah, those 30-30 ties are vicious, man. They'll get you. I guess there's always Overwatch soaking, right? Maybe using non-combat units to charge in first.
Yeah.
When I was running Gene Slayer Cult with my Vultures, I was kind of famous for crashing my Vultures into people, because starting on turn 2, I pretty much just sat my Vultures in hover mode for the rest of the game, because if I wasn't already in combat or falling back, I was charging into combat, because Gene Slayer Cult don't like Overwatch, and you can do the same thing with Catachin Guardsmen and Vultures, or you could do your Caladius charging in before some Terminators, or even you could charge a Riptide into things to soak Overwatch for crew. Whatever melee unit those Tau brought today.
They decided to bring Farsight and a Fusion Blade Commander.
Yeah, there we go. They decided to bring Farsight.
Brilliant. Yeah, so one thing to remember is the way that it's phrased. If you successfully charge, then even if they pull models away, you still get to activate. So where this comes into play... again, since I'm playing a Chaos Horde, I'll use them as an example. If I charge with both units of Plague Bearers in the same turn, and they both successfully charge a unit of 10 Guardsmen, because that's pretty common, and they're strung out pretty far, my first unit actually manages to kill 2 Guardsmen, and my opponent pulls them away from the second Plague Bearer squad, well, I'm no longer within an inch, but I did successfully charge, so I still get to activate, which means I get to pile in and consolidate. If I can hit a unit and come within an inch of a unit that I declared as a charge with my pile in, then I still get to attack. If I don't, I lose the ability to attack, but I can still consolidate and then re-engage stuff. So there's some play and counterplay just based on the board state, but that's another thing just to keep in mind and remember as you're pulling casualties. You can deny them being able to get attacks potentially if you've spread out far enough, but that leaves you at risk of getting tri-pointed. Or you can if you leave models there, you can limit their movement. So that's kind of the trade-off.
The other point that you can make with that is that because you can be selected if you're in combat or if you charge, you can use that when you're fighting twice, like using a fight twice strategy, like a lot of Imperium factions have, like Tyranids have. where if you kill one unit, you pile in, then you consolidate. You could consolidate to 1.1 inches away so that you're not in combat with enemy units, and then there's no one for them to select. And then at the end of the fight phase, you pop your 3 command points. You can still be selected to fight. Then you get your pile in. You're now in combat again. You get to swing, consolidate. Then they get to make their attacks back. So you could use that to deny them attacks in between if you've got like a fragile unit fighting. Something like a Smash Captain with 1 wound left, a Gene Stealer unit, where you don't want to take attacks until you've already done your damage.
Yeah, I come back to him again. Bloodletters, that's a perfect example. If I'm charging 2 squads of Catachan Guard, I wipe the first squad, I stay just outside of an inch, so that way I can fight twice and wipe the second squad, because if my Bloodletters get hit by Catachan Guard, there's no more Bloodletters, so...
Those Catachans, man, they lift.
They can be dirty.
Think we're ready to break into the 5-minute meta?
Let's do it. I'll let you take this one. While you look up the list, I'll just say that we are going to discuss Necrons this week, which is an army near and dear to my heart. They got me back into competitive 40k with the Decurion detachment, and then I promptly dropped them to go play Chaos. But Necrons are always floating around. I like playing them. It's fun to see them do well, but they're still...
Also, here's a spoiler. It has my favorite Necron HQ, Enrikir the Traveler.
Is that how you pronounce it? Anrikir?
And how do you pronounce it?
Anrikir? I can't pronounce Necron names, if I'm being honest with you.
The anal
always
wrecker.
Anrikir.
Wrecker the Traveler? I don't like that one as much.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
James Harden the Traveler?
He's going to travel in your butthole.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Alright, so I've got the list ready, so I'm going to read it real quick. So this is from Brian Strongman, who brought his Necrons to Gork's Grand Open, which I want to say was in California. I want to say it was in Northern California. He actually got second place with this list, so pretty impressive considering Necrons maybe punch a little bit above their weight class now. They're still kind of considered to be not a competitive army, but they've had a couple good showings recently. They're definitely on the upswing. So let me read the list to you. So he is using the Maynarch dynasty, which is not something you see often because it's a Forge-rolled one. We'll touch on that later. So Maynarch, he has Kutlak the World Killer, one of the best names of the game. He has an Overlord, 3 units of 5 Immortals. Then he has another battalion. He's got a Destroyer Lord, 3 more units of 5 Immortals, Anrikir the Traveler. And then he's got a Vanguard with a Cryptek and 27 Lich Guard, so it's 3 units of 9. So let's kind of break down what's going on here. Yep. So Kutlak the World Killer is the thing that no one knows what he is. He's 200 points for a Necron Lord. He's decent in melee. He does the normal Necron stuff. He's got My Will Be Done. You know, he's got an invul and he can stand up, get D3 wounds back every turn. He's a pretty standard Necron character. The important part is that he has a 12-inch aura for Maynarch units of advance and charge. So if units within 12 inches of him, they can charge even if they advance that turn.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing because what Maynarch does is it lets you choose the ability from a different dynastic code. And what he used here was, I don't remember the name of it.
He used Translocation Beams, which is from Nefric originally. Just to clarify what he's saying with the Forge World traits, Maynarch does not have an assigned dynastic code. And the same thing with like second founding Space Marine chapters, unknown founding, stuff like that. If you're using a custom hive fleet, you get to pick the trait, and I believe you get the accompanying stratagems, just not characters, of that, chapter, legion, faction, and you get to use that as your own if you don't have one assigned. So he gets to choose Translocation Beams, and what that does is it means he automatically advances 6 inches instead of rolling the dice, and when he advances, they get kind of a pseudo fly, where I don't think it's technically fly, but they get to move over obstacles in the way, so models and terrain, they get to ignore that when they move. So you can actually get pretty fast.
Yeah, you also have My Will Be Done, which adds +1 inch to your advance and charge rolls, so a net +2. Also gives you +1 to hit. And that all ties together with the 27 Lich Guard, 3 units of 9. So essentially, you take what's normally a slow unit with a base movement of 5, and you suddenly guarantee that they're moving 12 inches and then charging 2d6 +1 inches. And again, over screens, over stuff, whatever. They can also deep strike, which you don't get to stack deep strike with My Will Be Done because of when the order of operations. But you can deep strike into ruins or deep strike into position. Then the following turn, you move 12 inches and charge, essentially. So you're setting up, you have the ability to really set up good charges with solid melee units. Another thing, Anrakir, his buff, what he adds is he gives friendly units, friendly Necron units +1 attack. So the Lich Guard are 2 attacks base, and then Anrakir brings that to 3 attacks each. And they're AP3 with the Hyperspace swords, damage 1, or they're AP4, damage 2 with the War Scythes. So he has a couple tanky units that he can kind of throw in your face, and then he comes in with the War Scythes to kind of just really get the damage through and wipe you out.
Yeah, and he still does have 30 Immortals in this list. Like, it's not like he doesn't have anti-infantry fire. Like, he can absolutely use those to clear screens relatively efficiently, kind of soften people up to get those Immortals in. I would guess that he is using these on relatively dense terrain boards. He probably knew what the terrain is going to be like. Mm-hmm. I didn't see any pictures. This is pure speculation. But the Lich Guard, when you've got, Kutlak the World Killer, and you've got the translocation beams, they're basically as fast as Wraiths, but they're infantry. They're obviously a smaller profile than Wraiths, so you can kind of get them into those, maybe harder to see spots, and keep them alive, because they're Necrons, they're reasonably tanky, but they're not 30 Plague Bearer stuff, so you want to protect them if you have the option.
Yeah. Another thing to keep in mind as well, if the Immortals are using the Tesla's Assault, so you can advance and still shoot. If you have a full 6-inch advance on a 24-inch gun, your threat range becomes 30 inches. 35 inches. I know how math works. Mm-hmm. You create a consistent longer range with the ability to advance. If you use My Will Be Done, you're +1/-1 to hit, so you're negating that, and you're moving an extra inch, so you can have a 36-inch threat range.
Really, I just like how consistent the army is as a whole, because you get to choose that. You know that you're going to go X distance. It makes pre-measuring very strong. It's not a super high model count army, so he probably has the time to be careful with his placement, to pre-measure a lot of things, make sure he's exactly 14.9 inches away from an objective, so that next turn he can move his guaranteed 12, get within range. Do a lot of stuff like that. That just lets him, if he's a good player, which he got second out of GT, so he's probably not bad, it really lets you kind of have a little more control and play cagey a little bit more reliably, because you can't roll a 1 on it advance and just kind of screw yourself.
Yep. And another thing that he has the ability to do, if he does make a mistake, he does have the Veil of Darkness, so he can bail himself out once per game, reposition, or he can use that to go aggressive. So there is a little bit of built-in play and counterplay he has there.
Sorry, go ahead. Do those units, when they advance, have to be within distance of like an HQ to be able to get the automatic 6, or everybody on the board just automatic 6 for advance?
Everyone gets the automatic 6 to advance.
That is super strong.
Yeah, it's just a dynastic code.
Yeah.
Especially for Necrons who are really good at holding ground because they're so durable. Being able to get to that ground makes them even better in the current meta of secondaries that just require you to stay alive.
Yeah, my biggest issue is their wound count isn't super high, and they don't have Feel No Pains, so there's only so much durability you can get out of them. So against a high volume fire army, they tend to suffer. But as we see a lot more elite enemies, like LR Flyers is a good example, they have to focus and really over-dedicate to kill a unit, because if you leave 1 or 2 models left, with that Cryptek he's got there, you can bring him back on a 4-up, and with a little bit of luck, you can go from 2 Lich Guard back to 7. And then all of a sudden, you have this threat that you wasted a bunch of shooting trying to deal with, didn't deal with it, and that threat's right back where it started. So there's some layers there. Another little notice or item to note that I like, I've heard some Necron players who talk about like a Destroyer Lord and how they can't quite make them fit. They don't have enough attacks, or they're only hitting on 3s. Yeah, they have access to a pretty cool Relic War Scythe, but it's only alright. So with this loadout, a Destroyer Lord moves 10 inches base. It is infantry, so you can My Will Be Done it. And it can advance and still charge, again, with the World Killer. So you can set it up to where he moves 17 inches, then charges 2d6 plus 1. So he's suddenly pretty freaking quick. And the Relic War Scythe is AP 4, damage 3, always wounds on 2s. So if you My Will Be Done, you're hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s. Then you're wounding on 2s unless it's a vehicle, and you're damage 3, AP 4. So where that really shines is in enemy elite units. Stuff like Bulgrin, because they can only stack their invulnerable so high now, but they have ridiculous armor that they can still stack. Well, if you get in there with AP 4 damage 3, like, you can be pretty efficient at removing some Bulgrin, where normally Tesla shots aren't going to do that much.
I'd also say at killing characters, because he's got the fly keyword naturally with a 17-inch move, you can probably get over a screen pretty reliably.
Yep.
And then with flat damage 3, hit on 2s, roll 1s, wound on 2s, you can use a CP reroll here. You can probably get 4 saves onto almost any HQ in the game. You need him to fail 2 saves, that's flat 6 damage. Flat 6 damage will kill most of those characters that you might be going after, like an Armin. If you can just do 4 saves to Armin, he fails 2, he dies. Armin's got a 4-up invul, and it's very realistic that you could kill him here. A company commander, same situation. Even if they've got something wounded, like a smash captain, you might be able to take him down, just give him to force 1 save. He just seems like a cool little assassin. Kind of a threat, go in there, maybe tag some vehicles as well, because he's difficult to kill. He's not impossible to kill, but he's difficult enough to kill that you could throw him into the middle of the lines and just watch them take the time to kill him, and then he might stand up, because I think you could buy him that casket of endless scarabs or whatever it's called that lets him stand up when he dies.
Well, it's just a stratagem.
It's a stratagem?
Yeah.
That's even better.
Yeah, 1 CP on a 4+, stand a character up.
Okay. Yeah, that would be pretty annoying.
And then I'm sure he heals like all the other characters do, and if he's within enough inches of the Cryptek, he'll heal D3 or something. Yeah, I'd have to look into all the little buffs that Necron stack, but
he's an annoying little missile that now, if you're not prepared for it, you might lose a key character. Like, you could very easily lose a Nurgle Herald to this. You fail two saves.
Yeah,
you
5
take
up.
6 damage. You've got your 5 of Feel No Pain. You're probably not making half of those. You're dead.
Yep. Or even softer characters like the Herald of Tzeentch that I'm bringing, Changecaster. He can get sniped. Yeah, that's a really good point, because what I actually see that where it would be a big threat is the Contorted Epitome is a 200-point model that I need to have alive. You send this Destroyer Lord a heat-seeking missile and go hit me, all I have is a 5-up invulnerable save. No Feel No Pains. I got 8 or 9 wounds. You get force 4 saves. If I fail 3, I pick up the Contorted Epitome, and this game is suddenly way harder, because now I've got a ton of immortals. I can't lock them in combat as efficiently. And yeah, so like that, I can actually see where this would do incredibly well against the Chaos Horde.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think just having that option, because I don't think a lot of people like to rely on that, whatever those snipers are called, the death marks.
Yeah,
so I think having that one little beat stick that you can very quickly hop over the lines, get someone, I think that's actually pretty useful, and it gives you a tool that you otherwise won't have.
Absolutely. It's great against orcs. You take out the shock attack mech if you need to, or the war boss on Warbike, which in its own right is a heat-seeking missile with the relic Power Claw. Well, if you go kill him first, he's not doing anything, and now all of those orc boys lose their ability to advance and charge. You've still got yours. So I actually do really like him as a character assassin. I didn't even think about that. That's a very good point.
Y'all have convinced me. Necron's next army.
I've
Super
got,
secret. I'm going to swap out my list.
I've got Lich Guard for sale. You want some?
Ooh.
I think I got 20, something like that.
10 or
You
20.
need 27, obviously, to really make this list work.
Well, he's got at least a box of 5.
I've got 10.
Okay, we can do it.
Here we go. Necron's coming up next.
Oof. Dan, together we have almost the list. I need to get Enric the Traveler anyway. Let me give you a little bit of gym history here. This will be a whole new segment. Gym history.
Gymstery.
When I was just a wee lad in this gymstery lesson, first time I was introduced to Warhammer, Dan and I rolled up to a little hobby shop and a warehouse, and we were playing HeroClix. We were looking for HeroClix at the time, right? Was that what it was?
We were actually... So, one of the things about HeroClix is it has flat maps. We really like the idea of a 3D table. We
Yes.
didn't want just flat. We wanted something that had true elevation and height. And we saw Warhammer tables.
But it was like a wet dream because when we thought three-dimensional stuff, HeroClix is on a grid. So we were like, oh yeah, we'll have like boxes with grids on the top, so it's like they flew on top of a building and all that kind of stuff. And then they're like, they don't even use grids in this game? You use a tape measure? Like, you have the freedom to explore the whole world. It's a whole different ball game here. So we see this game being played, and we're like, yes, that's the game for us. Let's try it. And we poor, literally, sad boys see the price tag on all these models. And Steve, the good old hobby shop owner, ended up selling us a Blood Angels army for $100.
Dark Angels.
Dark Angels army for $100, and we split it fully painted. It was a really good deal.
Yeah.
Excellent deal.
Honestly,
with the
it
rule
was.
book. So we get home and we put a shoe on the floor and we played around the shoe. But all of this story is to say that the Necrons were the first army that I chose, and within the next week I went back and bought a Death Scythe, or Doom Scythe, yeah, a Doom Scythe, a box of the normal warriors, and like a box of immortals, and Anriker the Traveler. I painted Anriker the Traveler first, and then I decided that I wasn't going to play a single game of Warhammer until every single model was painted. So I wasn't even putting them together. I was plucking them out piece by piece, and I would like paint an arm, and then I glue them all together when they were painted. I got through like 2 Necron warriors, and then I sold it all.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my first army was Tyranids, and I just bought, like, the random jank that people had. Like, oh, you got 5 Termagants? Here's $5. Those are mine now. Like, just random Tyranid jank. And I would put this ugly army on the table and just play games. And Jimmy's over here like, I won't play you until I finish painting. And I'm like, bro, just play. Like, you don't even know what you need to paint because you don't have an army list. It's like, bro, I'm painting. Shut up.
That's all I can do. I had a little magnifying glass with a little clasp on the back, and I would. Yeah, it was pathetic.
It was terrible.
Also, I sold the Necrons to Dan.
Yeah, and then I painted them in a completely different scheme and then sold them.
Yeah.
Which
Anyway.
was cool.
Gymstery. There it is.
I'll tell you guys my history later. It's actually worse than that.
Really?
It's so much
Why
worse.
don't you have to tell us right
No.
now? We're in the segment.
No, we got. Don't bury the lead.
Johnstery.
This is the tease for next week.
This is the tease. They're going to come back for this.
But now
It's a
I
great
want to
start.
know. I'll come back next week just for this.
The only reason.
There we go.
Yeah. So with that, unless you had anything to add to the Gymstery, we can discuss the Super Secret GT.
Are we allowed to talk about that now?
No,
It's still
but
a
we're
secret.
going to.
We're going to do it anyway?
Yeah,
We're breaking
Alright.
rules here.
We're doing it. We're
Yeah.
diving in.
Eversour's going to kick in the door because we're spilling the beans here, but
Yep.
we do it for you. We do it for you.
Absolutely. So we're gonna go over our lists really fast.
And exactly how to beat them. That way, if you guys
Precisely.
can listen to it before.
Yeah, you get a free win. Just
Yeah.
mention this, and I will give you a free win.
He's lying.
It's like a coupon.
It's true. My fingers are crossed. You guys can't see it. All right, so Super Secret GT next weekend in Tallahassee. I think they're currently at 32 people. I think there's a small wait list, but also it's a Warhammer tournament, so there's always going to be, someone forgetting about something like a doctor's appointment or a wedding the day before and not showing up. So if you're near the Tallahassee area, I would say look up the Super Secret GT on Facebook. It's actually not a super secret, but I believe the name of the store it's being held at is Super Secret Comics and Games.
Oh.
Something along those lines.
I've been wondering this whole time.
Yeah,
I was like,
I think it's the store that it's based out of is why it's a super secret.
I just assumed it was 40K Fight Club. So like,
yeah.
Oh, we
Which
wouldn't be talking about this.
admittedly is a great name for a GT that's probably already been used.
Whenever it's true. Whenever something popped up on my Facebook feed, I was like, I'm part of the in crowd now. I've been invited to the secret, and now I just feel like an ass.
You are. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so this weekend, Super Secret GT, 32-man, standard ITC rules in Tallahassee, Florida.
Yep. The field is going to be ridiculous. There's at least 5, 6 top 50 players there. Top 50 of the ITC.
I know there's going to be 2 of the top 10 with myself and Mark Perry there. I think that's 7 and 9. Richard Siegler is going to be one of the judges, so thank God I don't have to play against him.
That's right, because he was originally on the list, and I was like, really? 3 of the top 10 at a 32-man GT? But one of them's judging it, so it's only 2.
Yeah.
But then Andrew Ford's going to be there, and he was top 10 for like half the season.
I think he's top 20 right now.
Yeah.
He's definitely highly up. He's high up there. He's a great player as well. Carter Leach, former LVO top 8 fame. Got a couple other people in the top 50, I think. Richard Martin is right on that 50 spot. He's actually number 1 on the wait list, so we'll see if he makes it in time.
Oh, no.
But definitely
And
a
then-
couple of the more competitive Brohammer members will be there.
I know Matt Dudat has been... he was top 20 at one point. He might still be top 50. He's definitely top 100.
Yeah.
He's going to be there. Then I have fallen. I'm not even top 100 anymore.
Oh,
so
no. What
Scrub.
happened?
I
Not
just
even top
suck.
100.
I'm not even top 100. I'm bad.
I don't even know where I am. Last time I knew it was 214. That was like 2 months ago.
Yeah, probably still in the 200s.
Well, I hope so. Let's not go up, 85 spaces.
Maybe it's better not to know.
I fell 60 spaces.
Well,
Ooh.
it's
Yeah.
not as bad as 85 spaces.
I don't know, but it was sad to see that and be like, oh man, I'm back to not being a top 100. I feel like I suck.
We just have to get to the end of the season, Dan.
Yeah. Anyways, we digress. So
John's like, these plebs wanting to be in the top 100.
John's like, I want top 1. That's John's
That'd be
goal.
ideal. All right, so let's go over lists. Daniel, you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll jump in first. I am playing, essentially it's a modified Jim Vessel Horde list. I've got 60 Plague Bearers, 25 Pink Horrors, 15 Bloodletters, 20 Brimstone Horrors, a unit of Nurglings, and 8 characters. So I've got the Contorted Epitome, the Changecaster, the Poxbringer, and the Murder Prince of Khorne. And then I have 2 Tzeentch Demon Princes, Ahriman on foot, and a Terminator Sorcerer. So I'm going straight memory. I think that's everything. Essentially, the goal is to just flood the board with bodies, throw out a bunch of smites. If you get too close to the beehive, you get stung. If you stay away, then I have board control.
It sounds like a really lame comic book hero tagline. If you get too close to the beehive, you get stung.
Oh, absolutely.
Mess with the rhino, get the horns.
Yeah, mess with the bull.
Oh, there you go.
You get
And
the
that is
horn.
now our trademarked intellectual property, so you better not steal that, Marvel.
Absolutely.
Get
Better
wrecked.
not steal that.
All right, Jimmy, what you got?
All right, my list is Imperium, and it is my ATC list, although corrected in one big way. My auxiliary Crusader Knight is not my warlord, which he should not have been. So I am playing 1 detachment of Custodes. It is Trajan with the Vexillus that makes all Custodes within 6 inches -1 to hit, and then 3 Caladius Grav tanks with the Accelerator Ion Cannon. And then I've got the auxiliary detachment with 1 knight. He is a Crast Crusader with a rapid fire battle cannon and the Avenger Gatling cannon
And the Ironstorm.
and the Iron Storm missile pod.
As you should.
Yes. And then 3rd detachment is a detachment of guard with 2 tank commanders. 1 with the relic battle cannon from Emperor's Fist, and that is going to be my warlord. And then the second one is a Punisher Gatling cannon tank commander. 1 normal commander. What do they call it?
Company
Commander.
commander.
There he is. And then 3 units of 10 guardsmen. And they're all being played as a Vistroyan.
There you go.
Yes. So one thing, when you say I have the Custodes detachment, just end it there. Like
That's not true.
Everybody knows.
you don't have to go in and say I've got this. It's the Custodes detachment.
We call it
Using
the-
Orions.
The triple
No,
tanky
see,
boys.
It's the Custodes detachment. There's
Alright,
there's
fair
the Orion's detachment, but if it's the Custodes detachment,
We just say Trajan and the boys.
Trajan and the boys.
We're going with
honestly,
Trajan and the boys.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think it works. All right. What I'm bringing, it's my patented Genestealer cult. Triple battalion, 20 aberrants. I'm not going to give the full breakdown because it's the exact same as my ATC list. I might have changed less than 10 points of it. But I've got triple battalion, so 70 Brood Brothers. I snuck a single mortar in there. Just one as attached to a random squad. I have a mortar now. I do my triple Patriarchs because the Patriarch is my favorite Genestealer cult unit. Love the big boy. I've got my Sanctus because I love sniping people and they're better than Kellermorphs. Then, your normal CP regen, the Biophagus, Clamovis, the Nexus for the CP regen, and, Primus, Icon Ward, and I put in my Abominate to escort those 20 Aberrants and give them that extra +1 to charge. It's a pretty solid list. I'm the only Genestealer cult player going, and I've got my tricks, so, I always feel pretty good going into an event, but it's definitely going to be a tough field as mentioned. Do we want to kind of start off with our expectations, what we think the weekend's going to be like?
Yeah, one thing to backpedal, you reminded me with your Sanctus. Jimmy also has the Assassin sideboard.
I meant to add that whenever it rolled along. I should remember, just because I stayed up all night painting them last night.
And they look great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Also, I hate the Vindicare and the Sanctus.
Like the model or the...
He hates playing against them.
I hate...
Okay.
They suck.
They're pretty great.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to go back to the 5-minute meta real fast, Lichguard do have the savior protocols for characters, so they're good for anti-sniper.
I'm really impressed by all of those things that weren't answering the question.
What was your question?
What are you expecting? What do you think going into the weekend?
Okay, yeah, I can do that, but I just...
He's still not answering
had lots
the
of
question.
thoughts. Okay, so my expectations, well, I really haven't even thought about it.
It sounds disappointing.
Any GT I go to, I expect to go 3-2. If I don't, something went horribly wrong, or I played a bunch of really good opponents, but I expect 3-2. I'm getting to a point, I'm not quite there yet, I'm starting to expect 4-1. I'm disappointed if I don't get 4-1. Obviously the goal is to win the entire thing. But to still talk a lot, but kind of answer your question, I expect at least 3-2, probably 4-1.
Okay.
Probably 4-1. My hope is to go 4-1. I wanted to go 4-1 in the past 2 GTs that I went to, and managed to be 3-2, I believe, in both of them, which has been a consistent thing. I've never gone 4-1 yet, which, be fair, I haven't been playing for a year.
I actually haven't ever been 4-1 either.
Really?
Yeah.
He's been 5-0 and 3-1-1 and 3-2.
Yeah, and 6-0 and 5-0 and 5-1.
No one cares about ATC.
I know, but still.
Record.
Yes, so I want to go 4-1. The thing is, I would like to talk about the mentality of a winner going into a tournament, because I was thinking about this today. I used to play HeroClix, and I would like to say I was a very good HeroClix player. I could go to a tournament with the expectation to win. Be like, yeah, I'm going to just go pick up some prize support today. In this game, I've never, ever felt that way. And not because I'm like, oh, I'm a bad player, but for some reason it's just never occurred to me.
Well,
whenever I go to a tournament, I'm just like, yeah, I don't even think, oh yeah, I'm going to win, I'm going to place. Like, it's just like, I hope I go 4-1. How does your mindset start at the beginning of the weekend?
That is an entire episode on its own. Maybe that's a preview on what we'll talk about next week, but maybe in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
I think we got another plan
after
for next
you
week.
win Super Secret, you can tell us about
after I go 4-1. We'll see. I guess my expectations. So I'm not going to fully answer your question because that is a long answer.
All right.
I'm always going in looking at undefeated. First place. That's always the goal for everything except like an LVO sized event. With that in mind, I don't know what the terrain's going to be like. I've seen a couple pictures of a couple tables. And it looked like there's some that have a lot of ruins, some that don't. Kind of a healthy mix of heavy and light terrain. Mostly what you'd expect at most events. There's also a tough crowd. I think there's going to be 9 Caladius Grav tanks there, so 3 different people have the triple list. So I would like to go minimum 4-1. 4-1 is... I can still look at myself in the mirror. Anything lower than that, I'm obviously going to be very disappointed.
No.
But with that in mind, kind of looking at some players, maybe besides us 3, who have a pretty good shot at that. We mentioned Andrew Ford. He's been on a tear in the South region. He seems to constantly be hitting that top 3, where he's always, an and 1 or an and a draw. So I would expect he's going to make a breakthrough soon. This might be the event for that. He's running List of Published. He's running your Crash Crusader with triple Caladius, and he's got, I think, 2 tank commanders as well.
Yeah,
I think he did 2 Punisher instead of a battle cannon.
Yeah.
So he's got a little bit of an anti-horde leaning there.
I actually stole that list after Georgia Iron Man, and we swapped one to a Punisher because I was removing the vultures to do it. So,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And then I think Aurelio Correa, he just won an RTT with the same list this weekend. Yet again, it's a Crash Crusader, Trajan and the boys. But he has 2 Helverins, and the reason I like Leo's list a lot in this scenario is that I think it works well in the mirror. Obviously, we've got a couple Caladius lists going. I expect those to do well because, oh boy, they're good. However, if he has the edge in that mirror match, where if he plays Andrew, he's got the 2 Helverins, and I think he has 1 Battle Cannon Tank Commander compared to 2 Punisher Tank Commanders and an Assassin. At that point, I would rather have that extra anti-tank firepower. So Leo might be able to do well overall because he's got the Caladiuses, and then in those later rounds when he hits the mirror match, that little bit of extra anti-tank might be enough to carry him over the edge, get him into that 4-1, 5-0 territory.
One thing, too, because the Crast Knight is part of a full detachment, it does get household traits. So that's kind of where he can make up, especially against Chaos in the anti-infantry. He can just shoot all of the guns and then charge with rerolls. And with the stratagem for exploding hits, especially against Chaos, like he can get a lot of efficiency in melee against Chaos, where Ford's list relies a little bit more on the Punisher tanks, which if they get tagged in combat, they fall back, they can't shoot. Where there's no answer, like if I tag your Crass Crusader, you're going to make a bunch of stomps on me. So Leo doesn't have as obvious anti-infantry and not as much, but it is incredibly efficient, especially against Chaos, which down south, we don't have a ton of orcs, so the hordes you're going to see are more Chaos, and then Lenin is the only Genus Cult player. So really, you're looking for Chaos hordes.
Mm-hmm.
Is this Aurelio that's playing there?
Yeah, that's Aurelio, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Whenever you said Aurelio, I was thinking somebody I've never met. But yes, Leo.
Aurelio is Leo.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Which I still have a winning record against Leo for now.
No, well, there's a GT this weekend, so that might change.
That might
Yeah.
change.
It will. Because the first time I played against Leo, he crushed me, and it made me sad.
I've only fought him twice, and I lost both times.
Yeah.
I should have won the second time. The first time,
Shoulda,
No.
woulda, coulda.
I didn't know what I was doing the first time. I was playing Tyranids versus his... Yeah, it was a bad time.
Well, maybe we'll get your rematch this weekend.
Maybe I will.
Yeah.
Maybe
Please
I
do,
will.
and knock each other out so I don't have to fight either of you.
I mean, we just talked about how his list is a good matchup against me, so we'll see how that goes.
I think Leo's is good in the mirror match, and I think that that's a list that we're going to be seeing a lot near the top of this. I haven't even finished looking through the list, but I know there's at least 3 Caladius lists in a 32-man tournament. I expect those to all start out 1-0, 2-0, and then start running into each other.
Yeah. Oof.
I will say that my final expectation, though, is no matter what happens, I will lose the last game of the event. I have a curse. It is a curse. And I can't explain it in any other way. I can predict what will happen at the very end of a tournament. Be like, I walk up to the table and I'm like, man, this is a 4-1 weekend. I'm going to win this game right here. This is prefacing it by me being 3-1 so far. And I'm like, man, if I get Dawn of War and the other guy goes first, and I have really bad rolls and that gets destroyed first turn, I will lose. And that's what happens. That's what happens right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is the time to break the streak.
We'll break the curse.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
It'll happen.
I will say, normally I don't blame circumstance or dice. Specifically with Jimmy, I've seen it happen where it's like even in the Knight Mirror match, it's like, okay, well, even if if my opponent goes first, I can kind of do some counter plays, counter maneuvers, and if with a little bit of luck, you can take that game back. Well, unless it's Dawn of War, 2 Gallants can both get their turn 1 charges, and the Crass Crusader pops off, and suddenly you have 1 Knight left. Stuff like that will happen.
Poor Jimmy. I believe in you, buddy. This is the time for 4-1.
This will be the time it
It's a
breaks.
tough field, though,
Do
so
it.
this would be a good event to do it at.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you do it at this event, that's
Come out swinging.
that's it.
Honestly, it's starting to make me feel worse because everybody's given the Caladius tanks so much crap. As I move forward and keep playing them, I'm just like, why am I not doing better? That person looks so solemn when we start the game, and then they beat me.
It might be that they're not as oppressive as we all think, because they're strong, but they still are 14 shots, needing line of sight.
Yeah.
There are some things that they don't match up well. But
Yeah.
you can outplay anything that requires line of sight is subject to, oh no, they got good terrain, I'm screwed.
Yeah. And another thing, when your opponent sees something like that and they're like, oh no, I'm at a disadvantage, they're going to naturally try harder. They're going to play harder and look for
Maybe
every
take
single
more
point.
risks.
Exactly. and if you didn't have as good of a list, you might actually have a better chance of beating certain types of players because they don't respect you if you don't have name recognition, and they don't respect your army. When they see, oh, it's that list, then
They're going to take it more seriously.
They've practiced against it because it's popular, and they're going to do everything that they can because they're that worried about the game.
Yeah. I do have to say, though, a lot of my losses that I've had, I can look back on and see the glaring mistakes that I've made that have led there. So I would like to think that each game I'm going to get a little better. So every tournament, I think, will be a little better experience. Usually the games that I lose, especially early in the tournament, are against things that I've not only not played against, but just literally never seen before. Like Haywire bikes
Yeah.
from the... Like, I'd never even played Harlequins, and then the tournament after that, it was Sisters, the Exorcist tanks that just annihilated everything I ever loved in my life. And they have like a 4-up invulnerable to round it off. Yeah.
They're actually really good.
Actually,
So
surprisingly
like
good.
as I move forward now, I know. But whenever I sit across the table from that person to start, and then I find out after 2 tanks are gone, it's a hard lesson that I should have known in the deployment phase. But now, hopefully that has prepared me for this weekend.
But that is just an experience thing that, I mean, you see these things more often the more you attend events, the more you play.
Yeah.
Again, obviously, Jim, you're a relatively new player. You certainly haven't been playing consistently as long as Dan and I have. That's just one of those things that you will pick up the more you hang out with 40K players. You know, you hear them talk about their games, and you might hear Daniel talking about his game against a Sky River jet bike, and if you don't know what that means, you'd be like, yo, Dan, well, what is that? And then he's like, oh, it's the Harlequin bike with Haywire. And then suddenly when you see someone put down a Harlequin bike model, you can be like, hold on, does that have Haywire?
Is that thing that I was talking
Is that
about?
the thing that I should avoid with vehicles? Yes. Yes, it is.
Yep.
I need to get more practice in during the week. I usually only play at events now because it's hard to get away for a 3-hour match in a work week.
Yeah, and we've also been going to events basically every third weekend.
Yeah.
So, like, Jimmy and I are married, so we have to keep the wives a little bit happy. So, like,
whenever you said that, I was like married to each other. I was like, we're moving forward with this analogy, yeah.
yeah, we're married to each other now. We'd play a lot more 40K if we were.
Don't tell their wives. I'm only married to ITC points. It's the only love I know in life.
Yep. It shows.
Oh,
Your relationship, it's going so well.
oh no. Yeah, I'm only the 7th wheel.
Aw.
Heyo. Better than being the 148th wheel.
You got an open relationship with 6,000 other people.
Yikes. I think it's more than that, actually. I think
It's
it's got to be like close to 10,000 in the ITC at this point.
How many people do you think will actively place 5 events into their point value, though? Out of those 6,000, because everybody talks about the 6,000, and it's great to be number 200, but I mean, like, what are you dealing with, an actual 500? Like,
I would guess that by the end of the year there will be well over 1,000 people who hit the 5 event mark. Well over 1,000.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess about 2,500 people will hit the 5 event mark.
Yeah, that was the number I was thinking. Because even if it's 3 RTTs, I guess the major would be the one that not everyone's going to hit.
Yeah.
and it might be like the one major, and it's like kind of a points tank.
Yeah.
So like it ends up being far down that anyway. But
Yeah, like if you get 42nd at a major and you get 44 ITC points or whatever, like that's not
Still counts as
contributing.
the 5th event though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 44 points you didn't have, but it's if all 5 of your scores are majors and you place top third, you're going to do better than someone who's middling at RTTs. Just because they don't have the availability to go to all these big events.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not sure where we're going in that direction. Oh, yes, we were talking about your marriage, your love life.
Yeah.
I love life with the ITC.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's
Cool.
what everyone wants to hear about.
Absolutely. All right. Is there anything else you guys want to go over? I think that was pretty good.
I think that was pretty good. I think we could just go into maybe what we're going to be doing next week. We'll have some GT coverage for you.
Yep.
And all 3 of us are going, so I'm sure we'll have some good stories, and hopefully one of us brings home the gold and we can talk about it.
Ooh.
And then I think that next week is my last serious event before the Nova Open, so I think maybe next week's topic probably will be talking about transitioning from playing ITC missions to playing Nova missions. And that'll be a good thing to focus on as kind of everyone is looking to get that prep in. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about, I think that'll be the weekend right before ETC. We might talk a little bit about that, maybe make some predictions about Team USA, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I think after this event, I might switch up the armies I'm playing. After Nova, you were talking about switching up your army, Lennon, and Jimmy, once the Caladius gets nerfed, you're going to switch up your army.
Going to Tau.
So, for some reason, Jimmy's making that mistake and going to play Tau.
Either Tau or Chaos. What's wrong with Tau?
What isn't?
I own Tau and I own Chaos. If by that time I can afford to add the few units that I'm missing of the Genestealer cult to optimize them, I may give them a run, but we'll see how it goes. Either way, it all needs to be painted.
Yeah. I will do Orcs. I want to say Necrons, but it's going to be Orcs. And,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all we got today. Thank you so much for coming and listening to us. By the time you're hearing this, we'll have a Facebook page set up. So if you guys want to give that a like, maybe share the podcast. And as always, give us some feedback. We're still very new to this, so please give us comments, criticism, requests, and let us know. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll see you all then.
Goodbye!